This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
The new KFC Dunk-It Bucket with juicy original recipe tenders, new mashed potato poppers, crispy fries, plus 3 sauces that fit right on top of the lid, so you can dunk anywhere. You can dunk at the game, dunk while security points to the no outside food sign, and dunk as 20,000 people watch you and your Dunk-It Bucket get removed from the stadium. Dunk almost anywhere with the new $7 KFC Dunk-It Bucket, or get the double Dunk-It Bucket for $25. Prices and participation vary while supplies last. Taxes, tips, and fees extra.
In 2011, director Bennett Miller and star Brad Pitt gave the world a quiet look at the stunning revolution in the world of baseball.
In 2025, we try a bourbon fit for royalty.
The film is Moneyball.
The whiskey is Bardstown Bourbon Company Distillery Reserve Cathedral French Oak Barrel Finish.
Are you done yet, Bob?
A 1-word movie title and a 78-word bourbon title.
And we will review both of those things today. This is the Film and Whiskey Podcast.
Welcome to the Film and Whiskey Podcast, where each week we review a classic movie and a glass of whiskey. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And Brad G, it is almost opening day in the world of Major League Baseball. We've officially arrived in spring, it seems.
As I get older, I find myself loving baseball more and more and more. What a great sport.
Let's do this. Let's have the baseball conversation right now. Folks, welcome into Film and Whiskey. If this is your first episode joining us, we don't usually go deep on sports. We usually go deep on films and whiskey. But because this is opening week, we figured, hey, let's talk about Moneyball. And in order to talk about Moneyball, we got to talk about the state of things in the world of baseball. Brad, it seems that both viewership and attendance have been in a steady decline for baseball for years and years now. The young people are just not attaching themselves to the world of baseball as they once did. And I'm not here to interrogate why that is, but I will say I watch less baseball than I ever have. But I'm kind of with you in that, like, there is no sport that I feel nostalgia for or like a deep sense of like magic like I do with a good baseball game. So I don't know how to reconcile those two things. I never watch it. But every time I watch a great baseball game, it's like, oh, this is America.
It's the best.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I will say, from what I have heard, the last few years, baseball is actually kind of boosting in the ratings again.
Oh, that's good.
Around 2019, it started going up. 2020, I think, helped as people wanted something to watch. And since, I believe viewership is up the last few years, as well as ticket sales. So baseball, surprisingly doing well, whereas I think it's coming out of the NBA's viewership a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I know that the NBA has been down. I will say, football is the black hole of American sports viewership that seems to suck up a lot of viewers who are shed from other sports.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, man, living in Cleveland over the last decade plus has been a huge blessing in the world of baseball because I've had a good baseball team to watch year in and year out.
I do love me some Guardians baseball, and it makes sense that baseball viewership would rebound. Honestly, it should be the dominant sport in America still. When you just think about like the sports calendar, it's the longest season of the year, and it's got essentially like 6-7 months of the year to itself. There's really nothing competing with it in those summer months. So it's crazy how much people love the NFL because baseball's like right there for the taking. And Brad, I don't think we could have picked a better movie to talk about when it comes to the world of baseball than Moneyball. Folks, if you are joining us for the first time, or if this is, one of your first episodes, what we've been doing this season is we've been looking at films from the last 20 years, and we've been asking the question, Does this movie deserve to be considered a modern masterpiece? Now, Brad, I don't want to spoil our answer to that question too much, but I will say, based on the few sports movies we've done this season, we've already said there's not a lot of great all-timer sports movies in the 21st century. And so I think just on that criteria, it's kind of an automatic yes in terms of being a classic. Is that fair to say?
I mean, I personally would judge it more just across all films. Like, I don't think just because it's a baseball movie means that it's a classic because it's really good. I will say, if you are just limiting it to baseball films of the last 30 years, like, yeah, this is a classic.
Mm-hmm. And again, like, people need sports movies to watch. And so maybe kind of by default, it's like, well, this is the closest thing we've had for the last 20 years, you know? So we'll get into talking about all this, but let's kind of cast some vision for our Moneyball episode. Brad, I've seen this movie, I don't know, 6 or 7 times all the way through. I've seen bits and pieces on TV a lot. It's really funny. My kids will lock in on this movie when I am like flipping through channels. And it doesn't seem like the kind of movie that anyone under the age of 35 would be interested in, because it's just guys sitting in decaying office rooms on telephones talking about dollars and cents. But like, you know, my 5-year-old looked at me today and he's like, I get it. I get why it's called Moneyball. And I said, yeah, buddy, why is that? He said, because they need money so they can play baseball. And I was like, this kid gets it. He has solved it. So, there's something about this movie. Maybe they're just preparing for their own dad phases down the road, but it is like, I'm sucked into this thing every time I watch it, Brad.
Just make sure the kids have like Doritos sprinkled onto their bellies while they're watching the movie. I think my favorite part of this film that I really want your kids to like pick up on and start quoting is when the scout is talking about how they don't want the one prospect because he has an ugly girlfriend. Like, yeah, he doesn't got good vision.
Nothing better exemplifies like the old way of scouting baseball players than like, he is not Joe DiMaggio or Mickey Mantle or whoever it was that dated Marilyn Monroe for a while. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. DiMaggio.
DiMaggio. Yeah. All right, Brad. On that note, let's get into our first segment of the day, which we call Brad Explains.
Brad's gonna give us the movie plot with only 60 seconds ticking on the clock. So let's go ahead and hear your take with this little segment that we call Brad Explains.
Brad Explains is the part of the show where Brad breaks down the plot of the film that he has just seen, often for the first time. Brad, I just revealed that I've seen this a number of times. How many watches is this for you of Moneyball?
I'm pretty sure that this is my second watch of Moneyball. I know I saw it 5 or 6 years ago. I don't think I've seen it since. But yeah, enough that I would say we're going to have a just ultra compelling 60 seconds here.
Now, Brad, I don't know how often you go down the rabbit hole of just kind of scrolling through YouTube clips, but this is a fixture, a staple of the YouTube short, at least in my algorithm. Have you seen bits and pieces of it anywhere in between your two watches, or are you coming into this completely separated from any viewing experience?
I don't feel like I've seen much of this movie. The one thing that I saw that I was like, oh, I forgot that was from Moneyball, is the meme when Brad Pitt is looking at the camera and he goes, listen, it's not that hard. Tell him.
It's incredibly hard.
It's incredibly hard.
What a
As
great moment.
anything worth trying to do is.
All right, man. So with that in mind, you have 60 seconds. Break down the plot of this movie with full spoilers. And go.
The film Moneyball follows Billy Beane, played by Brad Pitt, who is the general manager of the Oakland Athletics, a major league baseball club. They don't have much money, and they're losing some of their best players, and so they need a way to field a great team that can make the playoffs without much money, as your son put it. So he follows a few trails, realizes that there's a way to find value from lower costing players. He hires, what's his name? we'll just call him Jonah Hill. He hires Jonah Hill, real life Jonah Hill, to be his baseball analyst who believes in this different way of thinking. He pisses off a bunch of people on the way, and they have a really cool winning streak, and they lose in the ALDS, going nowhere. The end.
I want to kick off today talking about the team behind the camera of the movie, which I feel like we've been doing, frankly, a poor job of lately, Brad. We've gone into performances a lot, but I don't feel like we've really spent much time talking about directing or writing with a lot of our movies lately. But this is a film that features a writing team of Aaron Sorkin and Steven Zaillian. Now, Steve Zaillian is I don't even want to call him a journeyman. He is one of the best screenwriters in Hollywood. And he kind of falls into a more traditional mold when it comes to the way he tells his stories. It's a classic Hollywood storytelling technique. So, Brad, I'm going to read a couple of the movies that Steve Zaillian has written, many of which we've done on this podcast. So even going back to the 90s, he wrote the movie Awakenings with Robin Williams and Robert De Niro. He wrote Schindler's List.
Wow.
He wrote, he's credited for the story of the original Mission Impossible film. He wrote Gangs of New York. He wrote American Gangster. He helped with the screenplay for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He wrote The Irishman for Martin Scorsese. The guy is a big deal in Hollywood. And so you pair him up with, perhaps the preeminent dialogue guy in Aaron Sorkin. And I think what we have here is a script that is really fascinating to me to dissect, because I don't think you would immediately peg this as an Aaron Sorkin script. There is very little dialogue at times in this movie. And I find that it actually ends up being one of my favorite scripts that Sorkin has ever worked on, because there's a lot of economy to the dialogue. It's really crisp. It's really pointed, but it doesn't ramble. And I feel like especially late era Sorkin really tends to ramble. I really love this script, man.
Yeah, it absolutely winds itself tightly around what you're seeing on the screen. And you always feel this sense of unease, like every single time Brad Pitt reassures Jonah Hill that their jobs are safe, and then immediately flips things on his head. He goes, and besides, what's the worst that could happen? We're going to be fine. Everything's going to be good. And you're like, yeah, the worst thing that could happen is you get fired and you can't find a job. And it's just has a way of pacing itself that you have a lot of these little funny moments kind of interspersed throughout the film. But what I love most about the script is that it allows each scene to just be what it's going to be. And it doesn't expect anything out of the viewer to force it in any specific direction. There's just a natural, smooth movement to the way that this script flows.
So apparently Zaillian had done a first draft of it, and then Amy Pascal, the head of the studio, specifically sought out Aaron Sorkin to come do a rewrite. And Sorkin had enough respect for Zaillian that he said, I'm not going to work on this movie unless I get Steve Zaillian's blessing. And so they both kind of crafted new drafts of it independently of each other. So they really weren't working together on this. I'd be interested, if there's articles out there that talk about which scenes were written by which person, because there are definitely scenes in this movie where I'm like, oh, I think that's a Sorkin scene. And then there's other scenes where it's like, oh, that feels like the sort of pulling at the heartstrings thing that Steve Zaillian's really good at. In any case, I think that it adds up to a movie that I struggle to understand why this movie isn't a 10 out of 10 for me, Brad. It's really good. And it's the more I watch it, the more I realize that it's actually very understated in the way that it tries to pull off its themes. That there's some grand overarching character arc thing going on with Brad Pitt, and everything that is set up is paid off. There's a ton of Chekhov's guns in this movie, but they don't really call attention to themselves. And I think because of that, the first 4 or 5 times I saw this movie, I was like, very good movie, 8.5 out of 10. This time around, I felt like it worked even better for me, but I still it almost has that spotlight ceiling that we talked about, where the way they made this movie, I think, is really appropriate for the kind of story they're telling, but it also kind of puts a cap on my overall enjoyment factor of the movie.
I'm kind of with you here, Bob. I found myself this time through feeling like this is a better movie than what I actually am seeing on the screen. There's, and maybe it's just because I've listened to you talk about it and how much you love it, but this time through, I was struck by the beauty of the small moments of the film, but there's nothing that it ever really builds toward in my mind. Like, yes, there's the 20 game win streak. I got a little tripped up there, Bob, seeing as my Indians, had a 22 game win streak to break this record. No big deal. Just thought I should throw that in there. It doesn't feel like this movie builds anywhere. And I think that's my frustration with the movie is like, it's at the end of the day, he started something that was already somewhat in the works around the league, and he kind of gets credit for it. And yes, like it helped make a way better team than he would have built the traditional way. But at the end of the day, like he's never been to the World Series. He's never won a World Series. It ends with a really cool win streak that gets them into the playoffs, and they lose at the exact same place at the playoffs that they did the year before. It makes me wonder if this sports story was even worth translating into a film.
So I think that this is where I want to talk about the way the screenplay develops the Billy Beane character. And Brad Pitt is so good in this movie, but also he's doing the understated thing so much that at times you're like, is he acting or is he just like really tired on set today? You know what I mean? Like it's a very, I don't, understated is the nice way of saying it.
It reminds me of Bruce Willis in Sixth Sense.
Yes. Understated is the nice way of saying it. And I think sleepy is like, it's like the mean, he's got the old Sleepy Joe going on a little bit at times. And I think that like, because of that, it can be kind of easy to get distracted from the overall story they're trying to tell. And they do a great job of intercutting young Billy Beane being essentially like railroaded by the old way of gauging baseball players, of scouting. They find him in high school. He has a full ride to Stanford. He chooses to chase the money and chase his dream, and it doesn't pan out for him. And he gets chewed up and spat out. And that has always stuck with him as a person, that like he is a victim of what he deems to be a failure of a system. It's not even just that like he thinks he got screwed, but he starts recognizing that like I should never have been as hyped up as I was as a player. And like this is a fundamental flaw in the system. And so his embrace of the Moneyball system is really like him starting his own journey of discovery and healing. And I think for me, the scene that really clicked it for me, that I guess I just never put two and two together, is right after the 21 game or 20 game win streak. And it cuts to a scene of Jonah Hill and Brad Pitt in like a video room somewhere. And Brad Pitt's basically saying like, it doesn't matter. None of this matters. It sells hot dogs. But like, I know these guys. I know they don't care. The second we lose a game, they're going to be on our ass again. And what he's saying is correct about the way that the system sucks in baseball, but also like it's such an insight into the fact that like his character is still so deeply distrustful and haunted and scarred by what has happened to him that he still can't let himself take a step back and see that like he's already changed the course of baseball history by what he's done. I think it's a brilliant scene, and they do pay it off, 20 minutes later in the movie. But the insights into the character are really small and really understated. And I think they're easy to miss if you're not asking yourself at every point of the movie, like, what does this say? Like, what's the larger picture here? And perhaps that's a flaw of the movie. I'm curious, like, what you think about that.
I think that, like you've said, it's a really quiet movie. And the more you sit with it, the more you let it simmer, I think that it makes an incredible experience. The beauty of Beane's character really is that he is distrustful of the MLB as a whole, and he's deeply in love with like the art of the game of baseball. And you see that in those moments of contrast between who he is as a general manager and who he was as a player. I think the hard part is you don't get enough insight. I don't even know if you ever hear his younger self speak. It seems like there would be something to dive into there. But on another hand, like, they do a good job of treating it like they are, their memories. It's him remembering what it was like to be playing in the major leagues and how difficult it is. And you have to wonder, like, is being the type of general manager that he wishes he had as a player?
Well, and I think that's like, so you get to the point at the end of the movie where their season's over and he gets this astronomical offer from the Red Sox to come be their GM. It would be making the highest paid GM in all of sports. And Jonah Hill has this moment where he looks at Brad Pitt and, you can tell Brad Pitt's like mulling it over. And he's like, what does this say about me if I take the money at this point? And he's like, it says what it says about every great player who goes for the money, that they're worth it. And you can tell it doesn't sit well with Brad Pitt because the entire movie, what they've been saying is like, these players that are commanding all this money aren't worth it. You can actually replace them for like, it's a perfect mirror image of him being on the other side of the equation now. But I think, Brad, that what I'm struggling with is, do I actually want this movie to talk down to its audience more? And I think what I mean by that is, like, it doesn't have the big showy Oscar-y speeches. It doesn't have, at least not very much. It doesn't have people like looking directly at Billy Beane the way they look at J. Robert Oppenheimer and say, like, you are important. You need to realize how important you are. And I almost wish that it did a better job of underscoring the points it's trying to make about Billy Beane, because it relies on the audience to put two and two together. And I think obviously, like, we can do that, but it makes for a less dynamic, compelling, entertaining way of telling the story.
And for me, I think that all gets summed up with the final, like, big thing that happens in the film. The big speech that he gives at the end when he goes, "Oh, how can you not be romantic about baseball?" I think it's a huge missed opportunity, Bob.
Oh, that's my favorite part of the movie. I think that's the one place they nail it.
See, that's the one place where they completely, like, whiff.
Interesting.
It is the best opening line for an absolutely terrible speech, because he literally doesn't say anything about the beauty of baseball as a sport. He literally goes straight into, like, specifics about the Oakland A's. And I just was sitting there going, I thought that this was like an actual beautiful summary of what the sport of baseball is, but it's not. It's just him talking about, like, the Oakland A's for another few minutes. And I was so let down by that, because the movie should be about more than just sabermetrics. Like, it should be more than just about the way that they selected their players. And at the end of the day, that's all it's about. And so I found myself at the end of it kind of disappointed, like, I was expecting this more to be about, like, the beauty of baseball as a whole and what it can mean to a person. And it just kind of fell short of that. It fell shallow.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm saying. I wish they made more explicit the way that he actually helped the players themselves too. And you get a couple guys, like there's the jokey scene where the guy's like, "I'm going to pray for you." And he's like, "No problem." And just like walks away. But what he did is he implemented a system that actually values undervalued players, and it doesn't overvalue people that don't deserve it. So he's solving a system that victimized him and that kept so many guys from ever getting their chance. And I think that's the beauty of what he did. It's not just the dollars and cents. And you're right that the only thing they make explicit is the dollars and cents, and the, like, secondary benefit of, like, you made this better for players too. That needed to be made a little bit more explicit to me. Now, What I will say, though, is, like, so you have the scene where Brad Pitt says it's really hard not to be romantic about baseball, but here's why you can't. And that's what I was referring to. The one where he's like, it doesn't matter that we had this streak. It doesn't matter. All these guys don't care. But then by the end of the movie, you get the inversion of that with Jonah Hill presenting the guy who fell down rounding first and didn't realize he hit a home run. And I think that scene is like, it is so perfectly scripted, because even at the point, I'm sitting there with tears in my eyes about it. And even at the point where I'm like, that's a little on the nose, but I still love it. You get the great line where Jonah Hill acknowledges that it's on the nose, because he's like, it's a metaphor. And Brad Pitt's like, yes, I understand that this is a metaphor. Man, that part of the movie for me is just perfection, man.
Oh, that's the line about it being a metaphor. I'm like, it felt like an intrusion of humor from 8 years later. Like it felt like an intrusion of Guardians of the Galaxy kind of humor.
Sure.
And I was just kind of was like, ugh.
Oh, man.
That felt icky to me.
Now, what I will say is, so this movie is nominated for, I believe, 6 Oscars at the 2012 Academy Awards. A historically crappy year for movies as I look through 2011. Just not a great year. And says even more about this movie that it couldn't get the momentum needed to win any of these awards. The one that really stands out to me, though, Brad, is in editing, because I think that the editing in this movie is unbelievably good. So much so that, like, you almost don't notice it. But when I say that this movie is like a perfect YouTube clip movie, it's one of those things where, like, you have to have almost perfect editing to make a conversation between two people in an office building compelling. And even more so when it's like Brad Pitt on the phone with somebody that you don't hear the voice of on the other end. And even more so when it's like two guys watching a video replay on a screen. But where it really got me is the montage of the streak happening before, the final game that Billy Bean goes back to, when it's all just like archive footage and they're intercutting it with stuff from 100 years ago and playing radio interviews over top of it. It is like a brilliantly constructed historical montage. And this movie does stuff like that so well that I think that, again, you almost don't notice it, but it is like, it's a feat of editing for me.
Yeah, it so seamlessly weaves between the narrative and the history of baseball that you almost feel like the movie is a documentary at points. And it does it in such a beautiful way that you, the viewer, don't feel like you're shifting between genres from drama to documentary and back. It just has a really beautiful movement to it, flow to it, that I really enjoyed that. Did you say that it won editing, or did it not win?
It did not.
No. Come on, Oscars.
I know, man. I don't think it won any Oscars. I'm looking through the list. The Artist dominated this Oscars season. So here's let me read you.
Isn't that the
silent movie?
Film? Yeah.
Let me read you the best picture lineup here. The Artist, The Descendants, which is a movie by Alexander Payne, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, which is, wow, that's a bad movie. The Help, a movie we liked. Hugo, the Scorsese movie, pretty good. Midnight in Paris, a movie that you notoriously hate. Moneyball, The Tree of Life, and then War Horse, the Spielberg movie.
Hold up.
Yeah.
Midnight in Paris?
Brad, you're the only person on earth who does not think that's at least a good movie. Like, Bob, I don't want to spend any time on this.
I literally couldn't get past like 40 minutes. Like, I gave it a shot.
Well,
the acting was so horrifically bad in that film.
Allow that to cast a pall over. That's how bad of a year this was. If you think that movie is bad, I can guarantee you at least 5 movies in the Best Picture lineup are worse than that. So I look at this and I'm like, for me, this is Moneyball and The Tree of Life. And I don't know how those 2 movies didn't win everything at the Oscars.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Those are the 2 movies I've seen. I've seen a third of Midnight in Paris.
You saw The Help.
That's true. The Help. I apologize.
Yep.
So yeah, I would say Moneyball is better than The Help. I would say The Tree of Life is cooler than Moneyball, but it would have made sense if Moneyball wins over Tree of Life. That's a crappy year for movies.
Yeah, man, I agree.
I thought I would look up the animated film to see if that was any good. The animated feature film of that year was Rango.
Ugh. Narrowly beating out Kung Fu Panda 2.
Yes, and Puss in Boots.
So, Brad, on that note, why don't we hit pause here? I want to come back and talk a little bit about like what we think really works about the movie, and then specifically dive into the two main performances here in Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. But first, we've got to drink some whiskey. So what do you say we try this extremely long titled Bardstown Bourbon Company bourbon?
Let's drink some whiskey, Bob.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
All right, so today we are checking out Bardstown Bourbon Company Distillery Reserve. Now, this is a new line of whiskeys from Bardstown that they are launching with this inaugural blend called the Cathedral French Oak Barrel Finish. This is a blend of Kentucky straight bourbon whiskeys that are finished for 14 months in what they refer to as 300-year-old French oak barrels. Now, Brad,
Ooh.
this is...
That sounds expensive.
It does. I'm a marketing guy. I do a lot with copywriting. This is where language is very important, Brad, because there are times where a barrel or the wood used in a cooperage to make a barrel has been aged after the tree has been cut down. Like they aged the wood. I don't believe that's what's going on here. Now, the trees that were chopped down to make these barrels were at least 300 years of age. I don't know if we can actually call that 300-year-old oak the way that they're intending it to be interpreted, but maybe I'm reading it wrong. I will just say, first strike against this whiskey for me is like, you guys gotta be clear about what we're doing with the wood here.
Bob, I personally, this is just me, I remember living in Boston, and we went to a ice cream shop called, I think it was called Richardson's Creamery. And on their logo, it was like ice cream since 1685. And whether or not like they've been making the modern version of ice cream since then, or like some ancient, Puritan version of ice cream, I don't really care. Because when you say something is 300 years old, it doesn't bother me if it's a 300-year-old tree or a 300-year-old aged piece of wood that was cut down from a tree.
That's fair.
I think either is impressive.
It is very impressive. They also used trees that were harvested to help with the repairs on the Notre Dame Cathedral. So it seems like these are the pieces of wood that didn't make it into the cathedral, but that's why this is called...
So it's like holy wood.
It seems like it was destined to become holy wood, but then it was intercepted by the bourbon makers, and they were like, no, you will not make it into the cathedral. We're just going to call this Cathedral French Oak instead. So I love that they not only didn't allow it to get used in the cathedral, but that they then took it and called it Cathedral Oak, just as a big middle finger. Like, forget you, gigantic.
I don't know, Bob.
Gigantic Duomo.
I don't know, Bob. Knowing how much the Catholics like to drink, it would not surprise me if they set aside some of the wood to be used in such a manner.
They actually said, we don't need that beam after all. Rip that out. Let's make whiskey with it.
Bro, I know that Justo Gonzalez might not have talked about it, but you better believe that almost every innovation in the world of beer from 500 till now happened because of monasteries.
It's true. All right, so this is a blend of at least 5 different whiskeys. They are all Kentucky bourbons. They're ranging from 9 years to 18 years in age. Let's dive into this, Brad. It's clocking in at 110.1 proof. Thank you to Bardstown for sending us this sample, and thank you for what I am picking up on the nose of this bad boy. Brad, this is just, it was an immediate well-aged bourbon bomb when I poured it out. It didn't I didn't sense over oaked, but it was like, oh man, every time we've had a really good like 14, 15 or plus bourbon, it has this distinct, I guess I would just call it mature character to the nose. And then when that settled down a little bit, I got notes of like Coca-Cola, but it really tipped into almost like a flat root beer for me. There's like this kind of syrupy sarsaparilla kind of note going on underneath it all. It's really decadent, really rich. The color on this is absurdly dark, Brad. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 on the nose.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. For me, it was almost like a really heavy cherry licorice vibe. There's some black pepper, it's little bit of an orange zest. It kind of reminded me of like hot chocolate powder. And all of that going along with some really nice, mature caramel vanilla vibes of the classic bourbon. This is one of the best noses I think I've had on bourbon in a while. Bob, I'm not going to lie to you. I feel like I've almost given up on bourbon.
You were teasing this last week, weren't you? Or the week before, you were like, "Oh, this scotch is just okay, but I'd still drink it over every other bourbon."
Yeah, this is the first bourbon I've had in a while that the nose makes me really excited. So 9 out of 10 for me here. The palate, Robert, this is stunningly good.
Yeah,
it is oaky, but in the most like smooth and mellow way I can describe. There is brown sugar, there is cinnamon, it's got that orange zest coming through. It reminds me of like a really nice creamy creme brulee, just little piece of deliciousness.
Mm-hmm. This is and I mean this in the best way possible, this is the closest thing I think I've ever had from Bardstown that reminds me of some of the higher end versions of the bourbons we get from like the big boy players in the industry. Like this, you could set this down next to Wild Turkey Rare Breed, and I think it's right in that flavor wheelhouse. I think it's right there with Four Roses Small Batch Select as well. It's just a really nice, down the middle, well-aged, super sweet bourbon. It is like syrupy sweet in terms of like natural maple syrup on the tip of my tongue. There's waves of cherry as well. I don't think this is very viscous. And I don't know if that makes a huge difference. I did expect it to be a little bit more viscous with how well aged it is, but it just kind of dances across your tongue. It's a really easy to drink bourbon. It shoots like an electric wave back up your tongue in terms of how prickly it is on the palate. But it's I already said down the middle because I think this is a really crowd pleasing bourbon. There's nothing super complex going on here, Brad, but it's just this is everything I want in a bourbon. I'm going to give it a 9.5 on the palate.
Yeah, I don't know if I said my score. I'm at a 9.5 on the palate as well. I think I disagree with you a little bit, though. I think that this is a relatively complex bourbon. It has some really nice, almost like cigar notes going on, which for me, the finish has a decent amount of oak. It's got black pepper. It lands in a really nice cigar area. There's some almonds. Almost like an almond extract.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is a 10 out of 10 finish, Bob. And I think it's a relatively complex bourbon compared to something that is unfinished and unblended.
Every year at Aldi, I'm a big Aldi guy, by the way. They do twice a year. It's called German Week, and they bring in a bunch of their foods from, because Aldi is a German company. And so they sell like a lot of the stuff that they would normally sell in Germany for like a week in Aldi. And they have all these incredible desserts, and they're always in like the frozen section. But there's these super decadent like German cakes and pastries, and almost all of them have some amount of almond in them. And I'm with you, dude. There's a ton of almond on this, but I get quite a bit of almost like a raisiny or pruny character as well. It's like a really nice German cake. And I'm sure the French people that offered up these wonderful barrels don't want to be compared to the Germans, but that's what it reminds me of. Like, it has a distinctly European tart or pastry feel to it on the finish. I am going to give it a 10 out of 10. This is the best thing I've had from Bardstown in years. And we had one, I think, a couple seasons ago that was among our highest rated of the season. That was a wine finish from them. I can't even remember the name of it now because I am so enthralled with the one we're drinking at the moment. Brad, this is fantastic.
Yeah, we have not had something from Bardstown this impressive in a while. And that's not saying that Bardstown isn't putting out great product, because they are. This one is just a step above, like an A into A+ territory. I think balance-wise, this is a 10 out of 10. There is everything you want here. It is rich and complex. It has a great balance of flavors. I'm gave it a 10 out of 10 on the finish. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 on the balance.
I'm going to give it a 9.5. The only knock I think against this is that I wish it did have a little bit more viscosity to it, and I wish that it lingered just a little bit longer on the finish. But everything that it offers is so good that I can't go any lower than a 9.5 here. So even before we get into value, I'm at a 38 out of 40 when it comes to just the actual tasting experience. Brad, where are you?
I am at a 38.5.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, we're sitting, like, you know, if you extrapolated that out, we're at like a 95 out of 100 on this. This is one of the best whiskeys, I mean, just by the numbers, that we've ever had on this podcast.
Yeah. I'm curious, Bob. This has an MSRP, which I would say in general, you can find products from Bardstown for their MSRP. This is $100.
Oh, yeah. That's a 10 out of 10.
How do you feel about that?
That is a 10
out of 10.
I thought it was going to be, everything they've been putting out lately has been like 160. So I was prepared to go into this like, oh, it's either going to be 160 or slightly more than that. And Bardstown always kind of straddles the line between like a luxury brand and like a middle class fancy when it comes to their price points, which I really appreciate. I'm glad that they don't price things at $250 or whatever. At $100, I don't know that there is a better value in bourbon right now at that particular price point. This is unbelievably good, dude. That's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 for me. I was expecting 180.
Yeah. Well,
like, tell me that.
Let's do this thought exercise.
Sure.
If it was 180, what score would you give it?
Probably like an 8.
So it's so good, folks, that we would give it an 8 out of 10 or higher at $180. It only costs $100. This is such a no-brainer. It's like unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, 80% higher the cost, and you only lose 20% of our value score.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is, I mean, would you also give it an 8 if it was at $180?
Probably like at least a 7, I would say. Like, yeah. Luckily, I don't have to do that thought experiment because they've priced it so low comparatively. Brad, I'm coming out to what has to be, and this is a shock to me because I literally came into this blind tonight. I hadn't tried this. I had no, thoughts coming in. This has to be my highest score I've ever given. I'm at a 48 out of 50.
Wow. I'm at a 48.5, Bob.
40.
Brad, this is one of the best whiskeys we've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, and if you just asked me, hey, is that one of the best whiskeys you've ever tasted? I probably wouldn't say yes, but it's just such a crowd pleaser that I think it's almost punching above its weight. It feels weird to say that about a whiskey finished in 300-year-old barrels here.
There is part of me that is questioning how this can be $100.
Yes.
Because look at the blend, man. 85% of this whiskey is 14 years old or older.
Folks, this is coming out.
How is that $100?
Listen, this is coming out to a 48.25 out of 50 or a 96.5 out of 100. This is the highest rated whiskey we have ever had in our 440 episode history of Film and Whiskey.
This is incredible.
Yeah. I might go buy another full bottle of this when it comes out. This is the most excited I've been about a new whiskey in a long time, dude.
Want to make a trip down to Kentucky?
Let's freaking do it, man.
Dude, that's what we need to do. Just have a organized Film and Whiskey gathering at Bardstown just to buy this whiskey.
All right, tying it back into our movie for the day, what better way to go than the Moneyball route?
Dude, yeah.
I mean...
Dude, Bardstown basically is like the Moneyball. They are grabbing whiskeys from all over, They're helping other people out. They're wheeling and dealing, and they're coming out with a product that punches way above its weight class.
This is the Jeremy Giambi of bourbons. That's what we're saying here.
I don't know if that's a compliment or not, Bob. That man was dancing the whitest dance I've ever seen in a locker room. He deserved to get cut from the team.
All I'm going to say is this. How can you not be romantic about Bardstown?
Ugh.
Brad, let's get back into talking
brother.
about Moneyball. What do you say?
Let's get to it.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Your data is like gold to hackers. They're selling your passwords, bank details, and private messages. McAfee helps stop them. Secure VPN keeps your online activity private. AI-powered text scam detector spots phishing attempts instantly. And with award-winning antivirus, you get top-tier hacker protection. Plus, you'll get up to $2 million in identity theft coverage, all for just $39.99 for your first year. Visit McAfee.com. Cancel anytime. Terms apply.
All right, everybody. That was Bardstown Bourbon Company, something Cathedral whiskey. A whiskey,
the best whiskey we've ever had.
Yeah, I was gonna say it deserves a lot more than sarcasm from me, because by golly, Bob, that was incredible.
I'm on cloud nine, man.
Oh man, I love drinking good whiskey. There's nothing like it.
You know what is like it, Brad, is my freaking dominance this season at 2 facts and a falsehood.
I love it, man. You are doing great this year.
Brad is gonna try to stump you, Bob, to our right and what is wrong. 2 facts and a falsehood.
2 facts and a falsehood is the part of the show where Brad presents me with 3 items as fact about the making of this movie, one of which is actually a complete lie, and I have to figure out which one that is. Now, Brad, we're on an interesting streak here because we've had a couple guests on the show, and then before that, we had the episode with Spotlight where you were like, I don't feel comfortable making up facts or fictions about this subject matter. So it feels like this is kind of our return to normalcy. I'm interested to see how I do without anyone here to help me this week. So hit me with your 2 facts and a falsehood.
Fact number 1, Billy Beane is portrayed as a lonely divorcee. In real life, he had remarried by the time that the streak happened. Scenes were shot with Catherine Morris as his second wife, Tara. They didn't make the final cut, though, but they are included as a Blu-ray extra. However, Brad Pitt's character is still shown as wearing a wedding ring throughout the film. Fact number 2, director Bennett Miller was so impressed by Karis Dorsey when she sang The Show by Lenka during her audition that he not only cast her as the protagonist's daughter, but let her sing the 2008 song twice in the movie, which was actually set in 2002, sacrificing some of the historical authenticity. Fact number 3, Sony had originally allocated a much larger budget for the film, but after director Steven Soderbergh's departure over creative differences, the studio cut cost, forcing rewrites and fewer game sequences.
Interesting. Number 3 immediately stands out to me because I do think that, like, I've always wondered if it was simply a creative choice to film the baseball scenes that way, as if they're like on an empty stage almost, or if it was like truly budgetary. So that could be, you know, if number 3 is true, that would make a lot of sense. Number 2 also sounds true to me. Can you just quickly remind me of what number 1 was?
He was portrayed as a divorcee, but
okay.
He was actually remarried at the time.
Huh. It would have been funny if you were like, he's portrayed as a lonely divorcee. Actually, he was a super happy divorcee. He was just out there tearing it up.
That's the one switch.
In Oakland.
It's like Urban Meyer out there.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Although he is married. Let's see.
You know.
I have no idea. I think it's probably either 1 or 3. I'm going to say number 1 is the falsehood, just because if number 3 is the falsehood, I think you did a really good job writing it, Brad. So I want to give credit. I'm on a good, rewarding good writing streak here today. So I'll say 1 is the falsehood.
Well, Bob, you have rewarded me properly because number 3 was the falsehood, and you are incorrect.
Man. Darn it. So, okay, it sounds like, even though that was a falsehood, it sounds like you also made note of the way that the action of the sport is filmed in this movie.
Yeah, it's not great, Bob.
Yeah.
It's not good.
It looks a little cheap. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, that was one of the roughest parts for me, was the moments where they are trying to show what's happening in the game. I think that they were going for like let's get rid of all the noise. Let's get rid of all the extras and just show the beauty of the game. It didn't work. Mm-mm. It wasn't my favorite.
No, and I think that you can accomplish that, and the sound design in this movie, I think, is really well done, because there's a lot of times where it like completely fades out and they isolate different things. And so I think you can accomplish most of what they tried to do visually, orally instead. And yeah, I just A-U-R. Hourly. Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't think it works very well, and like a lot of the stuff with the actual team, I think, is part of the weaker elements of this movie. Chris Pratt is really, really good in this movie, and it's cool to see him before his big breakout on Parks and Rec.
Because is it crazy that I freaking love him in this movie?
Oh, he's so good. Because he. Again, like, I think this is where the understated thing works, because his comic timing is really, really good in this movie, but they also use his comic timing for like non-comedic moments where it's like not necessarily designed to make you laugh, but it's designed to underscore how unsure of himself he is. And I think he takes that up to the extreme with Andy Dwyer and then with Star-Lord. And here it's just like, here's a guy who's really struggling to like find self-worth. And I think he plays it beautifully.
I don't know who it is, but whoever plays the brother to Giambi, is it? What's
Jeremy?
The younger brother's
it's Jeremy.
name?
Yeah,
Jeremy. Thank you. Is like terrible and perfect, and the image of him dancing in the clubhouse is like everything I wanted out of this movie. It was that just killed me. And the moment when Jonah Hill is like, no, don't trade him. Like we like went to bat for this guy, and Brad Pitt looks at him like, trust me, we don't want this guy anymore, is the most well-deserved scorn I think I've ever seen in a movie.
Philip Seymour Hoffman shows up in this movie as Art Howe, the manager.
He's got some eyebrows in this movie, man.
Dude, here's why Philip Seymour Hoffman is like among the GOATs. He was never above taking a part that you almost forget he's in. And I think he does it as a favor to Bennett Miller. So Bennett Miller, this is only, I believe, his second film ever. And his first, or at least his first big one, was the movie Capote in 2005, which wins Philip Seymour Hoffman the Oscar. Bennett Miller does not direct another movie until Moneyball, 6 years later. But he asked Philip Seymour Hoffman to come on board, and he does. And I think that, like, again, it's the spotlight thing. He's like the Marty Baron of this movie. It's so understated. Yep. But then you get these little moments, like the moment that Chris Pratt's character, Hatteberg, hits that homer to win the 20th game. Even before the music kicks in, you get a shot where you see the launch angle of the ball. And then the first cut is to Philip Seymour Hoffman in the dugout. And it's his immediate reaction as his eyes raise up and he realizes this guy is going to hit a homer. And it is the most believable facial acting I've ever seen in him. It's just, I just threw my hands up. I was like, this dude's the freaking GOAT. It's so good, man.
Yeah. I have two thoughts. My first thought is, of all the ways to win a sporting event, whether it's like a shot from outside the box in soccer, a Hail Mary, a three-pointer to win it all, I think a home run is the best way to walk off of a field of battle victorious. Home runs are just incredible.
It's
Secondly,
perfect.
Oh, it's absolutely perfect. Secondly, Philip Seymour Hoffman is perfect in every single way. And I almost expected when he and Brad Pitt are like fighting about the lineup, I expected to like see it cut to black and then like come up with like Brad Pitt chained to a chair. And you just have Mission Impossible 3 Philip Seymour Hoffman looking at him being like, listen, it's not about the lineup. All right.
Just counting to 10 with a gun on Hatterberg.
It's about
7.
It's about control, you see.
He's so good, man. I'm glad to have him in this movie. Every time I see him in a movie, it makes me sad that we lost him so young, but like, just so good. And then you've got Jonah Hill, who we just talked about a couple weeks ago in The Wolf of Wall Street. And this could not be more polar opposite of a character. This is Jonah Hill at his most insecure. And again, I think I've used the word understated 58 times on this episode so far, but like that is clearly the direction that Bennett Miller is giving everyone in this film because it enhances the believability. It enhances the idea that these could be real people. And his character, spoiler alert, is not a real person. He's a mashup of a couple other different people, and one guy in particular that apparently did not allow his name to be used for this film. And I think he's so good, man. I don't know if I like him as much as I do in The Wolf of Wall Street, but I think that's just because he's so much showier in The Wolf of Wall Street that you remember it more, you know?
It's interesting. I feel like the Wolf of Wall Street character is actually more similar to this one in certain ways, as far as like his ability to play a super awkward character that doesn't always know if he fits into a space. Like that describes both characters in both worlds. The direction that he takes his Moneyball character feels, and ought to feel, so much more realistic and honest that I really love him in this movie. I think he is my favorite performance in this film.
Well, that's a good segue into talking a little more about Brad Pitt. I don't know what to make of this Brad Pitt performance. Like, he's nominated for Best Actor, and I think that Brad Pitt he's a great actor. But he is so constantly, this century especially, trying to find roles like this where he can play, like, he's almost toying with the idea of, like, how laid back can my performance be? And I think there's varying levels of success for me with that. I just took a trip to Las Vegas, and I was on the flight out, and I was like, you know what I'm going to watch on this airplane is Ocean's 11. And, you watch a little bit showier of a performance there. He's still not the most over the top in that movie. But I think what strikes me about watching multiple Brad Pitt performances kind of back to back is that he is like, I think that like mentally he tries to find like weird tics to give his character or I don't know, do something unexpected. And sometimes that's like an outburst, and sometimes that's like a weird facial expression. And I think in that way, he's actually more similar to like, he has the same MO, I feel like, as a guy like Nicolas Cage. But the way that manifests with Nicolas Cage is always like, what's the craziest thing I can do right now? Whereas with Pitt, it's like, people always talk about how he's eating all the time. Like he's always chewing something in a movie. He does that a lot. But I wonder, I don't actually know what his success rate is when he's making these weird choices. But the overall effect, I think, works 90% of the time with Brad Pitt.
And I think it works here in Moneyball. He is very, very determined and focused when it comes to his work. I think what makes the character work for me is his interactions with his daughter. And the scene where he's with his ex-wife and her new husband, dude, the way that he cuts that guy down to size and he just looks at him and goes, her mother and I will make that decision. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. It is like so laced with disgust and like, I know who I am. I am her father. I am self-assured. I was like blown away at that moment. And it had nothing to do with the main thrust of the movie, but it was perfect and I loved it. Also, can I just say, is this the most beautiful Brad Pitt we've seen in a movie?
I don't know. Brad Pitt as Achilles in Troy is pretty beautiful.
Oh, sure. The slightly shorter hair, I think, does it for me.
Okay. I like it. He is a beautiful man. There's no getting around it. The actor in the scene that you were talking about is the actor and director Spike Jonze, who we will be watching one of his films here in a couple weeks, the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix. He also was in The Wolf of Wall Street a couple weeks ago, Brad. He's the guy in the penny stock place when DiCaprio first goes in, and he's like, if you sell $10,000 of this stock, I will personally give you a blowjob. It's the same guy. So, just showing up here again.
Hold on a second. What is it with directors that make random cameos in other people's movies?
I don't know, but I love it because I think he knows exactly what kind of character he plays well, because it's the same character in both of these movies.
Yeah, Beta.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. So we've gone through the cast list. I guess Go ahead.
He plays betas, and then he makes a movie about a guy who can't get laid in real life.
Mm-hmm.
So he's focused on an AI.
The man.
Oh, sorry. That's just funny to me.
I think what we call that is self-aware,
Sure. Yeah, totally.
All right. So we've gone through the cast list. The only other major actor in this movie is Robin Wright, who shows up for 3 seconds as his ex-wife. I understand what they're trying to do with the presence of the daughter and telling him, literally singing to him, just enjoy the show.
Yeah.
I think that including his personal life in this movie is probably the movie's biggest mistake, because he's clearly not a very good dad and he was a worse husband. And you can accomplish that by just having someone mention that to the audience once. Just have one phone call with Robin Wright where she's like, you're a shitty dad and a shitty husband. And then that's it. Yeah. I don't know that we need 10 minutes of screen time with his wife or her new husband or the daughter.
Absolutely. This actually, watching Moneyball marks one of the rarest feats in the film and whiskey podcast history. Haley watched this movie with me.
Oh, wow.
It's a very rare thing.
What
and
did she think?
As we got to, she liked it. She was a little sad at the end. And she said, I feel like he should have taken the Boston job, because his main reason not to was that he didn't want to leave his daughter, but she already had to fly to see him anyways.
Right.
So why not just have her fly to Boston?
Also, is there a more 2001 thing than sending a child unaccompanied on an airplane?
I can't wait to do that someday, dude. I am 100% going to send my 13-year-old on an airplane by herself, and it's going to be so good for her.
Yeah, you're going to learn a lot. Get out of here, kid.
Go on, get.
Well, on that note, Brad, I think it's time for us to get into our last segment of the day, which we call Let's Make It a Double.
We're near the end of the episode, so thanks for listening to the Film and Whiskey Show. Let's pair another film with this one, even if it's a struggle. It's our final segment of the day, now let's make it a double.
Let's Make It a Double is presented by Blackwood Distilling Company. This is the part of the show where we pick a movie to pair up with this one to make the perfect double feature. Brad, I'm really curious which direction you went with your Let's Make It a Double today, because I think there's a couple different ways we could go. The floor is yours, sir.
I think I am going to pair this with another film that feels kind of like a documentary, a realizing of historical events, where they are under the gun to make something beautiful happen without any sense that it's actually going to go right. I'm going to pair this with Apollo 13.
Ooh, nice.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think
movie.
It would be a really fun evening. I don't think I'm just going to spoil if you already do, Bob. I don't think you should pair this with a baseball movie, because I don't know if Moneyball at its core is a baseball movie.
Yeah, even though we did an episode a couple years ago that was top 5 baseball movies, and I'm pretty sure Moneyball was our winner. So yeah, it feels like we're doing some revisionist history here now.
Easily. I will gladly revise my personal history, Bob.
I'm kind of with you in that, I don't know if it's fundamentally a baseball movie, but I do want to pair it with a baseball movie. And I think that if that's the case, then there's only a few you can really pair it with, because I want to essentially focus on baseball action. And I think for that, I will pair this with A League of Their Own. I think you get both sides, obviously, of front office and the team with that. You also round out what makes the baseball action so special in that movie. But I actually think Moneyball might do a better job of capturing or contextualizing why we love baseball so much. You know, it's almost as good as the James Earl Jones speech in Field of Dreams. But we've also talked on this podcast, like, I don't think Field of Dreams is really a baseball movie. Like, Field of Dreams is a freaking weird movie that people remember like 2 scenes from. And so I think you can kind of capture that with Brad Pitt saying, how can you not be romantic about baseball? And then watching, you know, the members of the ladies of the All-American League doing their Rockford Peaches thing. I'm going to pair it with A League of Their Own.
Dude, any chance I have to tell the public about how funny watching Tom Hanks whip a baseball glove at like a 9-year-old kid is, I will absolutely take it and say you need to go watch A League of Their Own, if only for that singular scene.
Listen, I don't really buy into the we've gone soft theory, but I don't think you get away with that scene in 2025. We need to bring back hitting children in the face with baseball gloves, man.
Dude, it's fascinating to think that, like, I feel like we've kind of hit on a theme in our season, because when I think about Moneyball, it's this idea of like an underdog who has a lot of insight into an industry that comes out on top. Mm-hmm. Like, tell me that couldn't describe The Big Short. Tell me it couldn't describe Ford v Ferrari. Tell me it couldn't describe Spotlight. Mm-hmm. Whiplash. Like, I feel like a lot of the movies we have highlighted from the last 25 years kind of fall into this vein of outsiders or underdogs that want to prove their greatness. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm like grasping for straws here, but it seems interesting to me.
Absolutely. And I think that's a major theme of what has made the great movies great over the years. Like, that's a Mr. Smith Goes to Washington kind of movie. That's a 12 Angry Men kind of a movie. It makes a lot of sense when you frame it that way.
Speaking of 12 Angry Men, I watched Juror number 2 the other day.
Oh, what'd you think, man? Oh, it was good. It's a good movie. Dude. Oh,
here's the problem. It's Clint Eastwood trying to make a 12 Angry Men, and Clint Eastwood does not have a nuanced bone in his body, especially at like 93.
Well, first of all, I don't know that I would call 12 Angry Men especially nuanced in the arguments it's trying to make. But I think what Eastwood's doing there is he's like, I'm going to make kind of a seedy 90s thriller.
Mm-hmm.
And it was marketed as like, one man stands for justice. Like, that's not even remotely what that movie's about, you know?
Sure.
So, I'm glad you watched it, though, man. And with that...
I liked it. It's like a 7.5 out of 10.
Oh, for sure. But like, it's a good 7.5. So with that, let's say that Let's Make It a Double was brought to you by Blackwood Distilling Company. No matter what movie you choose to pair this film up with, you can always make it a double with Blackwood Distilling Company and our friend Zach Johnston. Thanks again, Zach, for joining us. I'm super excited to continue drinking all of these whiskeys that Zach continues to give us, Brad.
And folks, I think in a few weeks, he will be joining us to review Jojo Rabbit.
That's what I'm talking about, man. He's about to be here with some more whiskey.
Oh, I'm so excited, man.
If you have not tried Blackwood yet, you can get 5% off of your bottle by going to bourbonoutfitter.com and using our code FILMWHISKEY at checkout. That's bourbonoutfitter.com/filmwhiskey. Use the code FILMWHISKEY at checkout. Thanks again, Blackwood. Brad, it's time for final scores. I think I already said that I've been at an 8.5 on this movie for a really long time. It's starting to click into place why I think this movie is so quote unquote perfectly structured. I'm just having the spotlight problem again here. And I think that I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, but I don't know if my actual enjoyment level or entertainment level will ever let me go higher than that.
Yeah, Bob, I'm sitting at an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
I think this is a really fun, interesting, solid movie. There's just not enough oomph to it to make me want to give it a higher score. And there's more than enough like average elements to the film, like 6.5, 7 out of 10 elements to the film that I'm like, yeah, it has some great pieces, some great acting. Like, if you take Philip Seymour Hoffman out of this movie, it's like a 7 out of 10 for me. 7.5 maybe. So like there's elements that raise it beyond where it ought to be. I don't think it's actually a truly great film, but it's really enjoyable and really fun and an easy way to pass. I think it's like an hour and 50 minutes, I want to say. So yeah, great movie, not overbearing, really fun to watch. And truly the scene when Pitt and his assistant are at Hatterberg's house and they're talking about how hard it is to play for a space is incredible. So there's a lot to love here. 8 out of 10 for me.
All right, Brad, so let's answer the question. Is this a modern classic for you?
No.
Yeah, once again, I'm going to give my sports movie caveat. You got mad at me when I did this for Creed, but I think it applies here too. Like, there are not a lot of good sports movies in the 21st century. So on that criteria, it kind of automatically qualifies. I think if we're just talking like, let's pick the 30 or 40 best movies of the 21st century, then that's a no. Really good movie, but it's just not quite there for me. So folks, that's where we're at on Moneyball. We're coming to an 8.5 out of 10 on average, but we'd like to hear what you think. You can find us on any of our social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube at Film Whiskey.
Or if you want to join the conversation, you can join our Discord server. We are on there every single day talking about movies, whiskey, and all sorts of other things. You can find a link to the server at the end of every single one of our show notes.
Next week, we'll be back talking with our friend Zach Johnston about the movie Jojo Rabbit, a film that Brad and I really enjoyed, and it seems like the entire internet hates at this point. Should be a fun conversation, Brad. I'm looking forward to that one. So join us for Jojo Rabbit next week. But until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost. Their designer quality frames start at $95, including prescription lenses, plus scratch-resistant, smudge-resistant, and anti-reflective coatings, and UV protection, and free adjustments for life. To find your next pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to find the Warby Parker store nearest you, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.